Hi, everybody. I'm Jenny from Light Gray Art Lab, and we are super excited and happy to welcome Sam Wolfe Connelly today. He'll be talking a little bit about illustration and his practice and what's important to him in illustration. Sam actually grew up in Washington, D.C., and then went to SCAD for school, and recently moved to New York, and he's been working as an illustrator and editorial illustrator and doing lots of exhibitions and gallery work. And he actually has been part of several light gray shows, such as the Role Models Battle for Victor Null, and then also part of the Girls Fact or Fiction show. He is extremely talented and has a wonderful style that he mixes sort of traditional work into his illustrations, and we are really happy to hear from him and see what he has in store for us. So let's welcome him.
Thank you. All right, so I have a slideshow set up, but I really, oh man, I can't. Can we turn it down just a tiny bit if that's a possibility? But I have a slideshow set up. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So basically, for a lot of my talks, I really love to have people ask questions while I do the talks. So at any time, if you just want to raise your hand and ask something, I would really appreciate it, because I love bouncing off questions, because I hate presentations that basically go through and just go through the websites and be like, this is how I did this piece, and this is how I did this piece. So please go ahead and ask any questions they want. I didn't have anything written down, so the first one way back there. Okay, no, just kidding. Background, I grew up in Northern Virginia, DC area. I've been doing art ever since I was growing up. My parents were really encouraging. I ended up going to SCAD for college. I graduated with a BFA in illustration. The main reason that I kind of chose illustration as a major was because I thought it was the best sort of way to merge the work that I do into a format that I could make a living for myself straight out of school. I'm really lucky in the fact that my mom's a graphic designer / art director for an educational magazine, and so she really kind of, you know, when I was in high school, she was able to show me stuff like communication arts and society illustrators. So I was exposed to illustration at a really early age, and I think the first time that I really saw illustration that really appealed to me was like, it was the cover of the 2011 Communication Arts by Sam Weber, and it had a vampire on it, and she had like blood all over her face, and I was like, that's really awesome, Mom. What is that? And she's like, that's illustration. I'm like, I'm doing illustration now. So I went to SCAD and I graduated in illustration. But slowly, I mean, in the past couple years, I've slowly kind of moved myself towards gallery work, more towards fine art work. Because that's what I always saw my work working towards. I saw illustration as a stepping stone in somewhat, but not to downplay illustration at all. I really like being able to solve problems for clients, really like being able to put my personal self into projects, and it's really great to work with people that are like-minded. I should have switched to this one. So this was the first piece in my portfolio, and it was a self-portrait. It's kind of like, I painted myself on like the home base of art, and I was feeling like, okay, I'm not gonna fool you guys. Let's go to the graphs. All right. All right, well, okay. I thought I'd make a helpful chart to show you guys that, the more artwork you create, the more drawings you're going to have. And if you, let's shut up for a second, okay? I mean, okay, so when I was a freshman in college, I spent a lot of time doing a lot of artwork that wasn't required of whatever projects I was working on. I did a lot of artwork on the weekends. Whenever I didn't have a project that was taking up my time for school, I'd be constantly drawing, because at the end of everything, drawing is the reason that you got into this. Drawing is the reason that you started your profession, and it becomes a thing. It's really hard to separate. When you become a professional illustrator, you have to separate, what's the love for it and what's the stuff that brings money into the bank. And that was it became a really serious thing with me, that I felt like I was kind of selling my soul for something that I really started out doing on my own, that I really had a passion for, and I really wanted to keep those things separate. And you just gotta sometimes take a step back and remember that you're doing this for a certain reason. You're doing this to express your feelings. And up until maybe halfway through college, I was just doing art because, I liked it. People said certain pieces were good. I kept doing it. And then it got to a point, when my ex-girlfriend broke up with me, that it started to mean something to me. It was something that came out of me. I could express myself in this artwork, and it was a perfect medium for me. And so that's when I started doing sort of more gallery work, and illustration and gallery work were both, great for me to I guess mature as an artist and as a person, and so far it's been great. We should look at the analytics though, and I feel pretty bad about my stuff most of the time, and I feel like that's the majority of artists. They do that. You feel bad about yourself, and that's not even your own opinion of your artwork. You're going to constantly get negative reviews from art directors, from anybody that you send your stuff to. I mean, I remember getting out of school and sending 300-400 postcards in a single week to art directors and not getting anything back. And I think in the first year transitioning out of art school, I sent maybe like 1,000-1,500 postcards total. Didn't get a single job out of any of that. And I started to get really concerned, because I was told that postcards were the way that you contacted people, and that's the number one way that you get jobs and stuff. But I think the number one reason for illustrators that stop illustrating is the negativity that they feel through it. It's really detrimental, and you gotta shrug it off, because no matter what, you're going to get 99% no's. And the thing about professional illustrators, they don't show you their flaws. They only show you their successes. So if you look at somebody like James Jean, who shows you all of his sketchbook work and all this other stuff, he shows you sketchbook work that's perfect, that's amazing, that you're starting every page in your sketchbook wanting to be perfect, just like a professional artist. But that's bullshit. That's absolute bullshit, because a sketchbook is where you fuck up. That's where you mess everything up because you want to learn. You don't want to make everything perfect. That's the purpose of a sketchbook, is that your sketchbook is something that you don't show other people. It's not something that you want to get pride from, It's where you fuck up so you can be a better artist in general, so that you can conceive your ideas better to the public. So I was sending out a lot of postcards, not getting a whole lot back, The first interview that I had right out of school was for the most major art rep at the time, a whole 2 years ago. But I was super proud of my work. I was getting it right out of school, and I showed him my stuff, and he basically went through it, and he said, "This is crap. This is student work, and you need to redo your entire portfolio because it doesn't solve any problems, and you don't need to. You're not doing anything with it, and you need to look at it at a point of view where you're solving problems for clients." And then the next day, I got a full-page job in Playboy. That guy was one person's opinion, He was an important dude, But you gotta imagine that everybody has certain opinions that are going to apply to their craft. And if you don't fit for something, that doesn't mean your art sucks, you know? If you make art that's important to you and you believe in it, somebody's going to eventually believe in it. You've just got to keep trying. That's just the number one thing that I think is the most important thing for illustrators. Now I'm going to go through some of my artwork and talk about jobs and stuff. So basically, when I was getting out of school, I had a big problem with style. I was really trying to find myself, and whenever I would try and talk to clients, I would try and show them stuff that I thought they would like. I'd get a client like the New York Times, and I'd go through the New York Times past illustrators, and I'd look through all their stuff and see like how they did all this stuff and try and apply it to the pieces that I was doing, and because I thought that's what they wanted to see. But the main thing that I was missing with style is that you can't be looking for style. You can't force yourself into a position where you're trying to form yourself around a certain style that you want to make based off of other people's, ideas. You gotta look more deeply into the fact that you're creating a language, and the language has to be yours. So you gotta appeal to stuff that you like. So I at that point, towards the end of college, I stopped looking at other illustrators. I stopped looking at all art. I stopped looking at anybody that was winning awards at the big name SOI stuff, communication arts stuff, because that's what was it was the popular thing. But it was getting into my head that it was affecting what I wanted to say with my stuff. So I started getting more in tune with kind of the stuff that I really loved about the reason that I started drawing. I mean, I was thinking about stuff that I really liked. I love campfire stories. I loved summer camp as a kid. I loved playing hide and go seek in my grandma's basement. I loved, having best friends on the weekends, swimming in a lake. Like, I love old photographs. I love spooky stories. And I felt like at that point, I was able to breach away from my influences. I had a lot of influences throughout school. They really taught me a lot by, as an artist, you mimic in order to get better as an artist. And that's great. That's how everybody learns. That's how, you're like a parrot. You learn to speak by mimicking other things. But it gets to a point, where you have to make an identity of yourself. And I think of it best as a language. Is you need to think of it as a visual language. And if you're taking bits and pieces of other people's voices and putting them into your own, you're just going to be speaking gibberish, and it's not going to really appeal to anybody. But if it appeals to you solidly, there's going to be somebody out there that understands it. And if you believe in it enough, like, you're going to be able to communicate with somebody. Here's a light gray piece that I did. Oh my God, yeah, the color is way off. So, this piece looks way better on this computer, but, so yeah, well, I'll show you one of my early pieces, like this. I didn't have any background. I was just like really stark shapes, really, just portrait. And I look back on it and I like the piece, but it just there was nothing about me in it, And if you're talking about illustration, you're working for a client, but you've got to have enough in you that you put into the piece that it gives you an identity. Because when a client hires you, they're hiring you. They're not hiring what they want to see. Like, they're hiring you as a person. So they're hiring everything that you've created as a whole piece. Does anybody have any questions at this time? None? Oh, when did I make it? 4 years ago. Thanks. So I think it's really important to experiment with a lot of methods. I don't know. I up until graduation, I was only doing drawing. I was really comfortable. I felt really set in my ideas of, drawing was my favorite thing. And then as I got further and further, it got a little redundant, and I became a little scared of kind of wanting to branch out into painting, because I felt like I'd be starting from square one. But I started doing a lot more gallery work, and I wasn't sure of myself, and it's the same way of taking a blank piece of paper and putting it on the wall. It's the scariest thing in the world. But I wanted to do gallery work so bad. Gallery work, a lot of the gallery owners, not all. I mean, I'm not trying to categorize them in all one field, but a lot of them want you to do painting, and I wanted to put my ideas on a bigger screen, and I was just so scared, and it was weird. It brought me back into art school, like days when I was going to art camp when I was in 8th grade. But I started doing some more paintings, and the first ones were shitty, and I messed up a lot, and I threw a lot away. But it was really gratifying, because when I started going more into painting, I really, I don't know, I made more of a presence for myself. I really enjoyed making stuff on a larger scale, and it wasn't as tough as I thought it was. And I think a lot of artists downplay the fact that, if I go into a different medium, you're starting from square one. You know what looks good. You got to give yourself enough credit that you know what looks good, what you want to see on the page, and it might take a little bit longer to get there, but I think it's really important for a lot of artists to know that it's your brain that's the important thing. It's not your hand. It's not how the brush feels. You really gotta, if you feel like branching out into something, you gotta do it. Like, it's intimidation. I feel like that kills a lot of illustration. Seriously, any questions? If you've got any questions, Okay. Question is, do I get blank sketchbook and anxiety, and how do I figure out ideas? Yeah, I actually don't keep a sketchbook. I hated that. I felt like whenever I bought a sketchbook, I wanted to make every single page perfect, and it was a bummer. It just made me feel bad all the time. But I mean, sometimes on trips I like to draw certain things. But with the idea stuff, I kind of I only draw stuff now that means something to me, and it's really hard to explain how you compare it to illustration, because you get a certain job and you have to find a way to bring yourself to it. But as far as personal pieces is, you've got to find a piece that resonates with you. You got to figure out ideas that resonate with you. So basically, for past shows that I've had, I've kind of sat myself down and I've thought, what's the most important thing in my life that's affecting me right now? And, it can be like a breakup. It can be happy stuff. It can be small stuff. But basically, I sit down and I think about just what affects me, because art is a selfish thing. Like, it's completely selfish, because you're the only person creating it, and you're the one telling everybody else what to think, basically. It doesn't mean that they're going to think the same thing, but they're going to take different stuff away from it. But you're the one that's going to put something down. So whatever you're going to put down, you better make it worth it. Like, you better make it something that you really feel strongly about. And for everybody, that's going to be a completely different thing. And so for me, I don't know. I would look at Tumblr a lot. Tumblr was like a really great resource for me for seeing like really inspirational stuff. And I'd see a lot of just portraits of just people with like a moon behind them. And it's just like, so what? It's just like, okay. And then there's a portrait of a naked girl. All right, so what? Like, why? Like, there's a billion naked chicks on canvases. Why? Who cares? Who fucking cares? So it's like, I have to go to my work and look at it and say, this is why I care, you know? This is why it matters. It's because, like, my fucking dog died. I made this piece, you know? And it doesn't have to be a dead dog. It can be like a guy drowning in a lake. Like, take something that really matters to you and make it yours. Like, own it. You've got a gift that nobody else has, the ability to actually put something on paper. So it's your opportunity to like show them like, these are my feelings. And you don't need to, you know, put feelings down every single time. I love to draw just because I love to do drawings. But for me, the passion comes from doing that type of stuff. And I don't know. These are the Gatsby drawings that I did for the Great Gatsby Portfolio Society. And I've read Great Gatsby a couple times, and it's a good book. But like when I was doing the drawings, you know, I feel like when I was doing this drawing, I was feeling really shitty. I was feeling really, really shitty, and I felt like I was trying to merge myself with like why Gatsby likes Daisy and why he wants to be rich and why he gets shot in the pool. I'm like, yeah, that would totally happen to me. But like, I don't know, for some reason, this scene, I was just like, you know, I'm looking for the green light too, Gatsby. I really, I tried to put myself as much into it as possible. I'm pretty sure that didn't answer your question, but yeah. What is my process? Basically, I mean, this was graphite and digital. This was also graphite and digital. I mean, that's what I usually do for illustration. It's a hell of a lot faster. When I was in school, I felt really uncomfortable with colors. You know, I mean, most of my schoolwork was like this. It was one basic color, and I didn't feel comfortable putting down any sort of tints and tones. You know, and I didn't take any painting classes either. So with Photoshop, it was a lot easier for me to switch it around. You know, I could do the drawing, make it as finished as possible, and then spend hours in Photoshop trying different palettes. But with my painting stuff, which is, oh my God, it doesn't look anything like it. But I've been doing a lot more painting recently, and the one thing that helped me with painting is Photoshop. I've never been comfortable with colors, but painting is a hell of a lot like Photoshop. I mean, you can basically make a painting in Photoshop, sampling colors of what you want to do, and just use that as reference to make an actual painting. And so basically when I was jumping into painting, I didn't want to just jump into it. My biggest fear was going into painting and just making it completely different. You know, it would look nothing like what I wanted to do. But the one promise that I made to myself was just like, I want it to look how my graphite drawing would look. And that's what my gallery said when they signed me was, we want your graphite stuff, but we want it 4 feet bigger and in color. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be right on it. Yeah, it's not that easy, but it's easier than you think because, you know, you have an idea of what you want it to look like, and you're going to have some faults, you know, going through the process of trying to get there, but it's really fulfilling when you get to that point. So painting, I haven't taken any painting classes, but I've been able to kind of just look at my drawings and then look at the paintings and kind of tweak them to what I want. And yeah, I mean, that's what I was saying. I don't think any medium should inhibit anybody from being able to do something. And I think mediums can actually give you a huge benefit especially if you're sketching, because if you use mediums to your advantage and let them do a lot of work, you can create a whole ton of new stuff. I had a professor when I think it was summer camp actually, when I was in like 8th grade, and we went out for this one project to do some figure sketching, and we went out to a tree, and we all had to break a branch off, and we brought it back in. We dipped it in. It was like a foot-long branch, and we dipped it into ink, and we had this giant like newsprint pad, and we would have to draw with our hand taped to the branch, like with our arm completely straight, and draw the figure. And that like totally blew my mind, because you're not in control anymore, and you're totally letting the medium do its work. And so that I don't know, it releases you from a lot of constraints. So I think, at the same time, I think if you give yourself constraints, you can make really interesting work. Like if you give yourself rules to follow, you can make some really, really great stuff. Because, if you go into Photoshop, you have every single tool available to you to do whatever. And that's frightening. The most frightening thing to me is looking at a white piece of paper. It's scary, So it's easier if you can have some sort of medium to kind of give you a start to it. Did you guys ever watch I don't remember the show, so never mind. Next question. If you guys have any questions. Okay. Do the clients ever ask me to do certain things that I don't feel comfortable with? I'm not comfortable with taking my bra off on the first date. I'm just kidding. I'm totally comfortable with that. I've never come in. Well, I've had jobs that they are really insistent on. I feel like I'm going to start naming people, and it's going to be really bad. I had a job where I had to do ski designs for some skis for a pro skier. Like those exist, right? And I had to make like 5 changes to them. They asked me to do this certain thing. I had to make like crystals with all these symbols on them, and then like a rising sun. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird, but okay. And so I did it because I was like, money. And then they asked for so many changes. They asked, as an illustrator, don't be a diva, because you're not going to get a lot of clients that way. And you'd be surprised at the amount of professional illustrators that are really big divas when it comes to making changes. It's just like, changes. You need to make changes if you want to please the client and have them come back. But at the point that I was making like 4 or 5 changes, 6 changes without any increase in the fee, and it was really eating into my time slots. And it was they ended up coming back to me, and they were like, the brown in the sun doesn't match the skier's hat. And I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, he's got this Gucci hat, and the brown's not the same shade. And I was like, fuck you. No, I didn't say that. But I was like, okay. And they were like, we'll just do it ourselves. Just give us the file and we'll just change it ourselves. And I was like, okay, yeah, do that. Change it yourself, and then show me the final file. And if I don't like it, then you still pay me, but you don't print it. And they were like, okay. And they never showed me the file. I still got paid though, so whatever. But clients will really take advantage of you, and it's a lot of them won't. A lot of them are really great. It's really tough these days as an illustrator, because 20 years ago you used to be able to work illustrator, art director, 2 people on a team compromising. Now you have to deal with editors and publishers and all that stuff. So a lot of times you're doing projects where it's you, and then you have to get your artwork approved twice by a team of like 6 people. So they're all throwing different ideas at you. And you should draw the line sometimes. It's like I said, you don't want to be a diva, but you do have to make compromises. But at the point where it's becoming not yours, that's really up to you. I've got a lot of friends that, they'll do whatever their client wants, and that's totally fine. You can make a hell of a living that way. I think the main reason that I got more into gallery art was just because I got really fucking sick of people telling me what to do, because it's not to say that gallery art people don't tell you what to do, because they do. But you got a bunch of people yelling at your face, telling you to do a certain thing a certain way, and they're not artists, so they don't know how to express that, so they just express it in ways that are just like, this is wrong. It's like, well, communicate. They can't communicate. I guess my suggestion would just be to kind of push your way through it. You're going to have tough jobs. You're going to have great jobs and you're going to have tough jobs, but every illustrator deals with that. If you get a tough job and it winds up shitty, don't put it in your portfolio. But hopefully at least you got paid for it, The question was what, how did I start dealing with my lighting with style? I did I invented lighting. Yeah, there's a lot of copyright issues on it, but I think that's how I define my style. I think I really I was really trying to find what determined my style. I was looking for line work and color and all that stuff, and I sucked at all of those. So I was like, I think it was mostly out of portfolio reviews. It was mostly the positive reviews that came out. They were like, hey, your lighting's good, and I was like, hey, I should probably work on that. But I really like lighting a lot. Most of the lighting in my work is I take reference, a lot of reference for proportions and stuff. But lighting, I almost never take reference for, because I just think the pieces are a lot more interesting if I add my own lighting. There was a professor that I had where we had to draw like 40 faces with different lighting on them. Like, we had a model up there, and he would change we had like these portraits of faces, 40 faces, and we had the model up there, and he would change the lighting like every minute, and we would have to shade every minute he changed the lighting. I really loved that, and I thought it added a lot more mood to the piece than anything else I could change. So it kind of fell in to my love of, like scary stuff, because, horror movies have a lot to do with lighting. So it was just kind of like a personal thing with the lighting. And I really enjoy doing that without the reference. And I suggest that, that's the thing. I feel like if you get too caught up in reference and too focused on what something is supposed to look like, you're going to lose a certain touch of yourself that you might not have there. And it's going to be, it's going to start looking like a romance novel cover or something like that. But, lighting doesn't have to be your thing. It can be line work. It can be color. It can be... those are the only 2 art keywords I can think of right now. But it can be anything, And lighting, it just seemed to work for me. I don't know. Yeah, I for the graphite and the graphite colored stuff, I just scan it, and then I do a lot of it's it's really slow. I do a lot of layers as far as the Photoshop file goes, because I feel like I feel like I'm constantly intimidated by the artwork. So I constantly just do glazes on top of glazes on top of glazes. So all the opacity is like really, really slow going. And so that's another thing that painting's been kind of hard about, because you have to put down stark colors, and it's it's a little bit unnerving for me. But I mean that's what you have to put yourself into as an artist. I think you gotta put yourself into uncomfortable situations and stuff like that. So I mean I can talk about projects that I did. I did the Great Gatsby book for Folio Society, which was really fun to do. It was really hard to get this project going because the Gatsby rights, because it came out right around when the movie came out, and so to get rights, because the publisher is in the UK, the Folio Society is in the UK, it was like touch and go. It was like, hey Sam, you want to work on this awesome project? And I was like, yeah. And then like a month later I get a call, Sam, the project's off. And be like, okay, thanks. And then a month later, hey Sam, remember that project? It's on again. And I'd be like, oh, it's awesome. Hey Sam, it's off. It'd be in like the same phone call. Now it's off. But it was really, really fun to work on. And the way I got in touch, like I think I sent them a mailer. I sent Folio Society a mailer like 2 or 3 years before I even got that project, and that was at the point where I was sending mailers and postcards and felt like everything was going into a black hole, you know. And I got really discouraged at that point. Like mailers would just seem to disappear and you wouldn't get any response. And that's what's really shitty about being far away from a, artistic community. Because when you're in college, you've got supporters and you've got people able to critique your work and stuff like that. But when you're living alone, in a studio and you're sending out all these mailers and nobody's getting back to you, it gets really shitty. But that shouldn't discourage anybody from, continuing that pursuit of work. I don't do it anymore. No. Okay. Well, here's the thing. I mean, I don't do it anymore, but I also don't really get jobs in it anymore. I haven't. Laugh at Sam. He's poor. I've been doing a lot more gallery work now, and I've been doing a lot more gallery work now. So. I actually have a couple I have a couple deadlines that are due after this week, but it's only because of people that I've worked with in the past that I had a really good relationship with. But in the past year, I haven't sent out any mailers or anything, but it shows. Like I was making a pretty good living. Right when I got out of school, I got the Playboy job, and I was like, oh man, I got this awesome job. It's gonna be so easy as an illustrator. And then I just like bought all these gold rings and like these rims for my car, and then I had 3 months of no jobs, and it takes a while to establish yourself, having multiple clients and having them constantly come back to you. But for the past year, I've probably done maybe 3 jobs, and that's not enough to live on. But I've been doing the gallery stuff, which has been, that's a whole nother conversation. There's a lot of gallery stuff, there's a lot of really great galleries out there that incorporate a lot of illustrative stuff. But it's a really different world if you're trying to mix illustration with gallery work. Because you have lowbrow galleries, you have highbrow galleries, you have group shows, and that's a huge conversation to get into. But no, basically my answer for you is the more I put into mailers, the more I got out of it. I was sending out all those postcards. I sent out like the 1,500 postcards and all that stuff. I didn't get a single job from 1,500 to 2,000 postcards after 2 years. Not a single job. But I have friends who did. I have friends who that works for. What worked for me is I really tried to get personal with the art directors. I started taking them out to dinner. I started sending them weird notes. I started, tying up their boyfriends. What you got to do is you got to get inside their head, and okay, that part wasn't a joke. You got to, if you really have a client that you want to work for, start making handmade mailers, because these art directors, they get postcards, they get emails, they get like 100 a day, They're going to throw them all in the trash. They might look at them for a second, but they're not going to remember you. You got to be remembered. You got to be in their face. Just because they don't remember you doesn't mean your art sucks. It means that they just had too much shit going on that day. So I suggest making these mailers that have awesome colored prints in them. I would send out mailers that have like 5 colored prints of finished pieces. I'd draw like a little hand drawing in gel pen on like the inside, and then I'd write a personal note addressing it to specifically them, and I'd send it to maybe like 30 art directors in a week. And I would almost always get a return out of sending, 100 postcards to just, generic or just email blast, If you make it personal, if you make it seem like it's somebody you really, really want to work with, they'll recognize it. They don't just toss it in the trash. If you make something that they really want to keep on their wall, they'll put it on their cork board behind their desk and stuff, and it means something. And that's something to be said for, going to openings too. If you go to Society of Illustrators and Communication Arts parties, openings and stuff like that, and you meet them face to face, you make a better impression than just, a postcard. I slit my wrists. And then the second choice would be getting over it. And I think most of the time what I make is not in my head. God, it's gonna sound so corny. I think that's the beauty of art. But I think you're gonna have something in your head, but it's like a camera. If oh God, there's gonna be some photography majors out there. If you take a picture of something, who cares? It's just what it is. Oh, God. As an artist, flaws are like the most important part. Flaws, restrictions. You don't realize it as an artist that painting something as well as you can is still a restriction, because no matter what, if you're the greatest painter in the world, you're still not going to make it a perfect image. And that's the greatest asset you have as an artist is your restrictions. And so if it's not what you like, then just do something else. And not to bring back my graph, but not real happy with the rest of my art. And it's different for everybody, but you may go your entire life not being happy with the rest of your art. And that's fine, because you know what? Other people are. Other people are going to pay money for that shit. Isn't that fucking crazy? That's insane, paying me money for like a lead on a piece of paper. Morons. But it gets your feelings out. You did that drawing. It's out of you. And I mean, if you can't be caught up in that idea. You got to keep moving on, because your life's going to keep moving on. Your art's going to be a journal. You're going to have this one thing that you want to draw, and then this next, and then just don't get stuck on one idea. You got to think about whatever's constant, whatever's bothering you now, whatever's great about your life now, and stuff like that. I don't play Magic. I don't really know what that game is. It's all I know is I got paid for some weird art, and then I used to, in middle school, I used to collect a ton of Magic cards, and I never played. I collected them for the art. I feel like a lot of people did that because it was just, the art was so awesome, and a lot was really bad. But I went. I'm going to try and make it short, but I went to a LuxCon. I luckily got a scholarship to go, where they sent me there, and I got to meet Jeremy Jarvis, who's the art director for Magic, and he was like, I was like this just cherub with my like portfolio floating up to him, and he just like smacked me in the face. And he was like, I was like, magic? I love magic. And he was just like, you might like it, but your work's not good for it. And so I really wanted to be a part of that. It was like kind of like a childhood dream to be a part of magic. And he was like, you need to work on this, this, and this, because I didn't have any sort of fantasy in my portfolio. He really wanted to see, the thing about art directors, they want to see what's in front of them. If you can draw an awesome, awesome portrait of, any president, if you show an art director a portfolio of fantastic cheeseburgers, they're not going to be able to get that you're a great painter and you can also paint great portraits. They're going to say, this person can paint great cheeseburgers. So you have to, I was like, I can draw good dragons. He didn't see that because I didn't have any dragons in my portfolio. So I did a couple more fantasy type things, and so I just kept, basically I sent him emails for like 2.5 years saying, hey, remember me? Here's some stuff. Didn't reply to a single one. And then 2.5 years later, I get a reply, here's a magic card, do it. And I was like, oh my God. Jeremy. And then I did a really bad job. And he told me I had to change so many things about it. But the fact is, I got paid, so who cares? But it was a childhood dream that it was great, and he did I feel like he just really did me a favor of doing that. But it was, that's the thing, persistence. I was throwing emails into the abyss for 2.5 years. There are people that throw emails into the abyss of 5 years. As long as you direct your portfolio to something that you truly, truly want to do, if you don't get a response, whatever, fuck them. Like, just keep doing it. Like seriously, that's the number one reason that people stop illustrating after school, because you don't have the community, you don't have the support around you, and it's awful for your feelings, for the art community. You gotta maintain that strive. It works. It seriously does. That's the best advice I can give you, I guess. Thank you.